ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀਕਲਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਟੀਵੀ ਨਾਰਥ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਵਰਲਡ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਿਦਮ। ਖਬਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਕਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਮਾਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਖਾਸ ਹੈਡਲਾਈਨਸ ਤੇ। ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਿਰ ਹੋਈ ਗੋਲੀਬਾਰੀ ਦੀ ਵਾਰਦਾਤ। ਮਾਲ ਅੰਦਰ ਦੋ ਗੁੰਡਾ ਗਰੁੱਪਾਂ ਅੰਦਰ ਹੋਈ ਗੋਲੀਬਾਰੀ। ਪੁਲਿਸ ਜਾਂਚ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੁਟੀ। ਕਾਬੁਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਸੈਨਾਵਾਂ ਐਮਬਾਸੀ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਅਮਲੇ ਨੂੰ ਕੱਢਿਆ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ ਬਾਹਰ। ਅਫਗਾਨੀ ਨਾਗਰਿਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਮੁੜ ਵਸੇਬੇ ਲਈ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਉਲੀਕਿਆ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ। ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਸਰਵੈਂਟਸ ਲਈ ਵੈਕਸੀਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ ਲਾਜ਼ਮੀ। ਅੱਧ ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਲਈ ਕੰਮ। ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਵਿਸਥਾਰ ਨਾਲ। ਟੋਰਾਂਟੋ ਦੇ ਪੱਛਮੀ ਸਿਰੇ ਦੇ ਸੀਐਫ ਸਰਵੇ ਗਾਰਡਨਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਕਹਿਣ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਬੰਦ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮਾਲ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਦੋ ਸਮੂਹਾਂ ਵਿਚਕਾਰ ਹੋਈ ਲੜਾਈ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਗੋਲੀ ਚਲਾਈ ਗਈ ਸੀ। ਐਮਰਜੈਂਸੀ ਕਰਮਚਾਰੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਹਾਈਵੇ 427 ਅਤੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਣੀ ਐਲਿਜ਼ਾਬੈਥ ਵੇਵ ਦੇ ਉੱਤਰ ਪੱਛਮ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਥਿਤ ਮਾਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੁਪਹਿਰ 2:30 ਵਜੇ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਬੁਲਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ। ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਅਜਿਹੀਆਂ ਵਾਰਦਾਤਾਂ ਬਰਦਾਸ਼ਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਜਾਣਗੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਦੋਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਸਖਤ ਕਾਰਵਾਈ ਅਮਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਿਆਂਦੀ ਜਾਵੇਗੀ।
Stoppers if they would like to remain anonymous. We would also ask members of the public, if you have loved ones who are here at Surrey Gardens, please do not come to this area. As I mentioned, we are conducting a controlled exit of the building now, and that will be happening over the next several minutes. As we do get more information, we will provide an update. I'll do my best to answer any questions that you may have, but that's all the information we have at the moment.
Why is the mall still locked down?
Mall's still in lockdown as members of the emergency task force and the tactical unit went through to clear the building to ensure it was safe for everybody inside.
Are you looking for a suspect inside at the moment?
At this point, we do have suspect information that we are pursuing in a number of different ways.
But within the mall itself?
I'm not willing to discuss that. Again, I'm not willing to disclose that at this time.
Any idea how many shots rang out?
We don't have that information right now. We do have reports that shots were fired between these two groups that were involved in an altercation inside the mall.
How many people did this group?
I don't have that information right now.
Can you tell us where exactly in the mall this happened?
I don't have that exact location. It was inside the mall. We have our command post set up just behind me here outside of exit number 3.
What was the altercation?
Don't have that information.
What did the officers encounter when they arrived here at the scene? Was the scene chaos?
Well, obviously it's a very busy mall. Lots of people were here during the daytime. Certainly, there were reports of the shooting. People did witness. I think some media partners have already spoken to some people who did witness that fight and that altercation. Certainly, when something like that happens, people tend to vacate the area very quickly. There are some people who are still within the mall. Like I said, it's been on lockdown since this happened. We've had excellent cooperation from the staff here at Surrey Gardens with the help of their security team in helping our officers and the officers from Peel Regional Police do what they need to do.
You mentioned there was an altercation or a fight. Was it a verbal altercation or a fight, or was it a physical situation?
It was a physical situation.
There's two groups of men engaged in a physical fight, and that's what...
Yes, shots were fired. Yes.
Do you know how many guns were seized?
No, I do not.
Come back to numbers. How many groups on either side?
Two groups were involved in the altercation.
Two groups of how many?
Don't know. Don't
How
have
many
that
suspects
information.
are you looking at now?
Again, I know we have some suspect information that I'm not willing to disclose at this time.
Is there an ongoing threat to public safety at this point?
No, at this point, the emergency task force and Peel tactical units have cleared the building. They have deemed it to be secure. They're undertaking a controlled exit of those people who remain inside because of the lockdown.
Any guns that were recovered?
At this point, I'm not willing to disclose that.
As DPS officers have been going through, are they completely done now, looking at every store, every entrance, exit, to make sure that there are no armed suspects?
Like I said, they continue to work inside the building with the assistance of Peel and mall security in order to do that controlled exit.
I'm told, Megan, that a trail of blood has been discovered outside of Starbucks here, inside the wall. What can you tell us about that?
I consider that evidence and not willing to comment.
That's something obviously investigators are looking into.
Absolutely.
Maybe you have a handgun?
I don't have any information about the types of firearms that were used.
Have you found any shell casings?
Again, that's all part of the investigation. So we have officers who are not only securing the mall with the assistance of an emergency task force and field tactical. We also have investigators who are on scene who are conducting the investigative side of this incident.
I imagine the mall has pretty solid surveillance camera footage. Have your office had a chance to review that yet?
Like I said, we've had excellent cooperation from mall security and mall staff. They're working very closely together to secure any evidence that may be located as part of this incident.
How do police believe suspects left the mall? Is there a getaway vehicle that you're looking for now?
Again, all part of suspect information that we're actively pursuing, and I'm just not willing to disclose.
Was there another shooting at that Starbucks recently?
I don't have that information with me on hand. As I mentioned, once the controlled exit has started, and we do have some more information, either Duty Senior Officer Inspector Kelly Skinner or Chief Raymer, who is also on scene, will come out to offer further comment. Failing that, I will make sure that I come out to offer final comment as well. Okay? Thank you.
Will all be on lockdown for the entirety of the evening?
I would say that's fair, but I will double check and bring that to the next update. Thank you.
Sorry, I was late. Can I just ask you to repeat your initial statement for me?
Yeah, just wanted to offer that at 2:30 this afternoon, police officers received a call for an incident that took place inside Surrey Gardens. There were reports of two groups of people who were involved in an altercation when firearms were drawn and shots were fired. At this point, we have emergency task force from Toronto Police with the assistance of tactical officers from Peel and mall security who are working together to clear the building to ensure the safety of everyone. The building at the moment has been deemed secure, and they are undertaking a controlled exit of those people who remain inside because of the lockdown.
Do you know if there were anybody was injured or killed?
At this point, we have not located anyone with injuries. We also have some suspect information that we are actively pursuing, but I'm not willing to disclose it at this time.
First and last name, right?
Megan Gray, MEAGHAN-GRAY, spokesperson, Toronto Police Service.
Copy, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I'll be back.
ਅਫਗਾਨਿਸਤਾਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਿਦੇਸ਼ੀ ਫੌਜਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਿਕਲਣ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਹੁਣ ਉੱਥੇ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਭਿਆਨਕ ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਨੇ। ਤਾਲਿਬਾਨ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਅਫਗਾਨਿਸਤਾਨ ਦੇ ਵਧੇਰੇ ਇਲਾਕਿਆਂ ਉੱਤੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਕਬਜ਼ਾ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ। ਪੂਰੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੀ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਇਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਅਫਗਾਨਿਸਤਾਨ ਦੇ ਹਾਲਾਤਾਂ ਉੱਤੇ ਟਿਕੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ। ਡੈਨਵਰ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਦਿਰ ਹਾਹਿਮੀ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਤਾਲਿਬਾਨ ਦਾ ਤੇਜ਼ੀ ਨਾਲ ਅੱਗੇ ਵਧਣਾ ਸੰਯੁਕਤ ਰਾਜ ਲਈ ਵੱਡੀ ਹਾਰ ਹੈ।
Well, it's a horrific scene, and it's going to get much worse in the coming days and weeks. This is a colossal defeat for the United States and its allies. It's going to cast a very dark cloud over the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and it's pretty clear that given the rapid collapse of Afghan government troops, that the statements and military assessment that we were given by military commanders in NATO grossly exaggerated the competence of the Afghan government and Afghan forces. Things were much worse than we were told, and we're seeing that unfolding before our eyes. Well, that's the big question. It's not only how did the American military commanders get it so wrong, but what does the United States have to show for 20 years of investment in Afghanistan at the tune of roughly $1 trillion. And I suspect the answer to the question, stems from the arrogance that goes with military power. You think that you can solve everything by virtue of the, command that you have over over your adversary, but clearly that's not the case. And so I think this is going to haunt the United States. It's going to haunt the West. The failure in Afghanistan, the return of the Taliban. It's going to haunt, the West and how it perceives its role in the world for many years to come, and I would add rightly so. Well, the prediction was that they could last roughly 2 to 3 years after the American troops left. The reports that we're getting right now is that the Taliban are approaching Kabul. And so I think the final days of the Afghan government are rapidly approaching. As we're seeing right now, there's sort of an indirect acknowledgement of this because Western powers, including Canada, are all sort of sending in special operations forces to take out their embassy staff and depart before the Taliban arrive. So I suspect that within the next week or so, the focus will be on Kabul and the citizens that are left in that city as the Taliban forces approach. That's absolutely correct. I mean, we're all thinking now about the women of Afghanistan, about religious minorities and ethnic minorities in Afghanistan, what their fate will be. One of the tragedies here is that the Taliban are going to be newly sort of arrogant and triumphant, not want to concede anything to anyone, believing that, previously we defeated the Soviet Union, now we've defeated the United States, we don't need to be accountable to anyone. And of course, one of the big concerns here is that, terrorist groups are going to reconstitute themselves, reorganize and establish themselves in Afghanistan, and that's exactly how 9/11 began. So in many ways, 20 years after 9/11, we're back to the point where we began.
ਕਾਬੁਲ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਐਮਬੈਸੀ ਦੇ ਅਮਲੇ ਨੂੰ ਬਾਹਰ ਕੱਢਣ ਲਈ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਸੈਨਾਵਾਂ ਅਫਗਾਨਿਸਤਾਨ ਭੇਜੀਆਂ ਜਾਣਗੀਆਂ। ਇੱਥੇ ਸਥਿਤ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਐਮਬੈਸੀ ਨੂੰ ਬੰਦ ਕਰਨ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਅਮਲੇ ਨੂੰ ਬਾਹਰ ਕੱਢਿਆ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ। ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਅਫਗਾਨੀ ਨਾਗਰਿਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਮੁੜ ਵਸੇਬੇ ਲਈ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਵੀ ਲਾਂਚ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ।
Before I discuss our efforts to bring Afghan nationals to safety in Canada, I would like to provide a brief update on the Canadian Armed Forces opportunity pertaining to Afghanistan. Now, we've been closely monitoring the evolving situation in Afghanistan on a continuous basis. Our Canadian Armed Forces personnel have been on the ground for some time now, and we're working across government, including with Global Affairs Canada, to develop contingency plans for a range of scenarios. Now, for obvious security reasons, I cannot provide details about any possible operational support, but we will continue to provide updates as they become available. But I want to reiterate that the security of the Canadian Embassy and the safety of our personnel in Kabul is our top priority, and we have been working on this for some time. Over the past weeks, much like the rest of the world, Canadians have been watching what has been happening in Afghanistan. Concern for the people who have worked to build a more equal and prosperous country for Afghans. Our government shares those concerns, and we are taking real action to resettle the brave Afghans who are instrumental to our mission in Afghanistan. Over the past weeks, our departments have been working quickly to evacuate those individuals and their families who are at significant risk because of their support to Canada and our allies. National Defence has been helping Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada to identify and vet eligible applicants. Since receiving the official request for federal assistance on July 30th, the Canadian Armed Forces have been providing dedicated airlift support and personnel under Operation Aegis. The Royal Canadian Air Force began flight operations with our C-17 Globemasters from 429 Tactical Squadron that brought the first Afghan evacuees safely to Canada. And IRCC officials welcomed them at the Toronto Pearson International Airport at 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, August 4th, with Minister Mendicino and Monsef there.
ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਸਰਵੈਂਟਸ ਲਈ ਪੂਰੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਵੈਕਸੀਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਵਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਰਤ ਰੱਖੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ। ਇਨਰ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟਲ ਅਫੇਅਰਜ਼ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਡੋਮਿਨਿਕ ਲਿਬਨਾਂਕ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਸਰਵਿਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਲਈ ਵੈਕਸੀਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਅੱਧਾ ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਲੋਕ ਸਿੱਧੇ ਤੌਰ ਉੱਤੇ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਲਈ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਫਿਰ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਫੌਜ ਹੋਵੇ ਜਾਂ RCMP ਆਦਿ।
And as vaccines became readily available, public servants stepped up yet again, with their arms out among the many Canadians who have already been fully vaccinated. That is so important because we continue to face more transmissible and more dangerous variants of concern. Les autorités de santé publique continuent de nous dire que les vaccins sont de loin le meilleur moyen de mettre fin à cette pandémie. Nous le savons. C'est pourquoi nous vous annonçons aujourd'hui que nous exigerons la vaccination dans la fonction publique fédérale. We know that vaccines are the best way to end this pandemic. That is why we are announcing today that we will require vaccinations in the federal public service. We will take the time needed to get this right, but we will also act very quickly. The next step is obviously to engage our key stakeholders, including unions, bargaining agents, to build the details of this strong, mandatory federal vaccination plan. We are targeting implementation early this fall, and we will obviously communicate the details as this work unfolds but this work begins immediately. The Government of Canada has a large workforce and a large reach to help in the fight against COVID-19. It is both our opportunity, but also our duty to lead by example. Nous avons le devoir d'assurer la sécurité de nos employés et de ceux qu'ils servent.
ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਕੋਲੰਬੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੰਗਲੀ ਅੱਗ ਨੇ ਹੁਣ ਸਮੋਗ ਦਾ ਰੂਪ ਧਾਰਨ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ, ਜਿਸ ਕਾਰਨ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ ਵਾਸੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੀ ਗਰਮੀ ਦੀ ਤੀਜੀ ਲਹਿਰ ਦਾ ਸੇਕ ਚੱਲਣਾ ਪੈ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਵਾਤਾਵਰਣ ਮਾਹਰਾਂ ਅਨੁਸਾਰ ਜੇਕਰ ਸਮਾਂ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਇਸ ਉੱਤੇ ਕਾਬੂ ਨਾ ਪਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ ਤਾਂ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਦੇ ਤਾਪਮਾਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਧਾ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ। ਕਈ ਇਲਾਕਿਆਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਘਾਟ ਹੋਣ ਕਾਰਨ ਸਥਿਤੀ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਖਰਾਬ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ।
Very, very smoky, very difficult breathing if you have some issues, as I do, and also getting to be very, very hot.
But the heat is pretty bad, yeah. It's like, it feels really like suffocating.
With the air quality, obviously we have to watch our time outside, right?
It's a high risk of mortality amongst people if they don't take precaution. People should not be worried about going to cooling centres, regardless of how many people are there. You don't have to worry about physically distancing. Do not wear a mask if you're having trouble breathing. Do not be afraid to go and check on your neighbour.
A lot of it really is getting messaging out to individuals, especially individuals that are living alone, that having somebody check up on them.
I've got a burn in here, you know. It was so hot, you know, but I have to.
You have to make a living.
Yeah, make a living, but which is very difficult.
I wouldn't want to be stuck out in this heat wearing a fur coat.
I like the mist, but I hate the heat.
So we make sure that we're proactive, ensuring that we have water ready, that we have cooling stations ready, that we are moving vulnerable folks that need to be moved to other housing or different rooms, that they can have more ventilation as well.
And that's what we saw at the end of June, was just massive die-offs of mussels and seaweeds. It's like getting a sunburn and then not letting that heal and getting another sunburn. We'll have to see if this one does more damage.
ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਦੇ ਐਲਾਨ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਧੜਾਧੜ ਫੰਡਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਜਿਸ ਤਹਿਤ ਹੁਣ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਕੋਲੰਬੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੌਂਗ ਟਰਮ ਕੇਅਰਜ਼ ਸੈਂਟਰਾਂ ਲਈ ਫੰਡਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਇਹ ਐਲਾਨ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਇਕਨੋਮਿਕ ਡਿਵੈਲਪਮੈਂਟ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਟੈਰੀ ਬੀਚ ਨੇ ਕੀਤਾ।
For the people who live and work in long-term care facilities and their families, that question is particularly poignant. I represent Burnaby and North Vancouver, and some of the care facilities that were first affected, dramatically affected, were right here in our own community, in our backyard. From deadly outbreaks to staffing shortages to the isolation of prolonged lockdowns, long-term care workers and residents have suffered immeasurably during the pandemic. The situation has shown us exactly where we fall short, namely infection prevention and control, staffing, infrastructure, and testing. This is why we made a commitment to Canadians to do all we can to address the systemic problems that put our seniors at risk. To address the immediate needs in some facilities, the Canadian Armed Forces helped in the provinces of Quebec and Ontario, and I think we collectively hope that's something that we don't have to do in the future because of the action that we're taking. The federal government provided funding for personal protective equipment and to raise wages of essential workers. And I can tell for everybody here, this is quite personal for me, not just because of the members of our community that are affected, but my mother works in care, and my sister is a nurse, and my grandma was also a nurse. So when there are situations where we're not delivering up to our potential, I hear from my family members directly. To address these gaps, we are also committing up to $1 billion through what is called the Safe Long-Term Care Fund, announced in the 2020 Fall Economic Statement. We created this fund to work with provinces and territories because to do better, we know that we have to work together. And so today, I am very proud to announce an agreement between the federal government and British Columbia for safe long-term care in this province. With the agreement, British Columbia is receiving close to $134 million to invest in priority initiatives. For residents in this province, this means more single-bed rooms in long-term care facilities.
ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਬਾਰਡਰ ਤੇ ਕਮਰਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਟਰਾਂਸਪੋਰਟ ਟਰੱਕ ਟਰੈਵਲਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੁਕਾ ਕੇ ਲਿਜਾਈ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ 83 ਕਿਲੋ ਕੋਕੀਨ ਨਾਲ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਦੇ ਇੱਕ 46 ਸਾਲਾ ਟਰੱਕ ਡਰਾਈਵਰ ਗੁਰਦੀਪ ਸਿੰਘ ਮੰਗੜ ਨੂੰ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਬਾਰਡਰ ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਆਰਸੀਐਮਪੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤਾਰ ਤੇ ਚਾਰਜ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਲੰਘੀ 9 ਅਗਸਤ ਵਾਲੇ ਦਿਨ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਤੋਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦਾਖਲ ਹੋਣ ਸਮੇਂ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਵਾਸੀ ਗੁਰਦੀਪ ਸਿੰਘ ਮੰਗੜ ਦੇ ਟਰੱਕ ਟ੍ਰੇਲਰ ਨੂੰ ਜਦੋਂ ਸੈਕੰਡਰੀ ਇੰਸਪੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਲਈ ਬਾਹਰ ਕੱਢਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਤਾਂ ਜਾਂਚ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਇਹ ਬਰਾਮਦੀ ਹੋਈ। ਗੁਰਦੀਪ ਮੰਗੜ ਦੀ ਸਾਰਨੀਆ ਅਦਾਲਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੇਸ਼ੀ 19 ਅਗਸਤ ਦੀ ਪਈ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਮਾਮਲੇ ਦੀ ਹੋਰ ਤਫਤੀਸ਼ ਆਰਸੀਐਮਪੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। याद रहे कनेडियन ते अमरीकन सुरक्षा अधिकारियों वालों वड्डे पद्धर ते नशियां दीयां बरामदगियां कीतियां जा रहीआं ने। वैस्ट जैट वालों अपने पैसेंजर्स नूं सबर तो काम लैण लई कहा जा रहा है क्योंकि एयरलाइंस कोल स्टाफ की कमी पाई जा रही है। पिछले साल दर वट के कट्टण तो बाद वैस्ट जैट के वीपी ऑफ कम्यूनीकेशन रिचर्ड बार्ट्रेम ने कहा कि वह जल्द तो जल्द सारे स्टाफ नूं वापस लियाउण दी सोच रहे हैं। महामारी तो पहला वैस्ट जैट कोल 14,000 तो वध कर्मचारी काम करते सन, हुण उन्हां कोल 6,000 कर्मचारी काम कर रहे हैं ते इस साल के अखीर तक उन्हां कोल 9,000 कर्मचारी हो जाएंगे। उन्हें यह भी कहा कि महामारी दौरान फ्लाइट्स भी नाटकी ढंग नाल घट गई ने। उन्हें कहा कि 2019 विच महामारी तो पहला वाले दौर विच वैस्ट जैट दीयां 700 फ्लाइट्स एक दिन विच चलदियां सन। पिछे जे साडे कोल दिन दीयां मसां 30 उड़ानां रह गईयां सन, हुण साडे कोल रोजाना 350 फ्लाइट्स ने। फिलहाल वर्ल्ड पंजाबी न्यूज़ दे इस बुलेटिन विच इन्ना ही। होर ताज़ा खबरां लई तुसीं वेखदे रहो चढ़दी कला टाइम टीवी नॉर्थ अमरीका। मैनूं रिदम नूं दिओ आग्या। धन्नवाद।